r/AskReddit. What were some times when you died inside? If you want to join my giveaway for $500, subscribe and you will be automatically entered. Last year a work friend of mine died. After his funeral, a large group of us went to pub to have a few drinks in remembrance of him. Someone suggested to get a group photo of everyone there. I was asked to take the photo. It probably shouldn't have bothered me as much as it did. But it did. Was on a TV quiz show and totally fucked up. Died inside when it was aired. Being 45 minutes into a 1-hour drive to a meeting to realize you left the main reason for the meeting at home. I was 15. Someone was taking a photo of my girlfriend at the time and she goes, "Make sure you don't smile. You're ugly when you smile, you look much better when you're serious. Don't want you ruining another photo." It was not a joke. That killed me so hard. I'm 34 and I still struggle to smile in front of people. That time I left school while chatting to friends and spotted my mum's car. Got in said car and uttered the usual "Thanks for picking me up, mum," only to realize that it was not in fact my mum's car, but a complete stranger and their family. Having to repeat a clever off-the-cuff joke because the person was focusing on their phone. My first serious, real relationship, living with a girl and all that. She was basically a TA at the time and told me about this guy in her class that she thought I'd get along with well. "He's just like you." I meet the guy and sure enough we were eerily alike. Then she calls me at work one day. Says she's working on a paper and asks me some odd questions about STDs. Her questions were strange and I didn't understand why this paper was so urgent that she felt she needed to call me at work. I got home, looked through her phone and found where they'd been sleeping together. That shit hurt. At a company event. As we left, my colleagues were nowhere to be found as I walked outside. So I waited there. Turns out they were taking a group photo without me. Once created a painting for a friend. Hung it up on the door to my apartment as a surprise. It was easily bypassed. He asked, "What's with people around here? You let people put shitty vacation ads on your door?" Never again. For those asking, I live in West Virginia. It was a painting of one of our favorite spots we would seek when hiking. This happened in Morgantown and it's called Blue Hole. Not really sure of the actual name of the river. He showed me the place. Lots of people go swimming there. But he knew a secret spot. It was a view from the exit of the trees of our favorite area. Honestly, a lot of people had things like that in Morgantown and around the state. Which is why I think he easily overlooked it. I did not tell him at that time. I was so embarrassed I was glad he didn't figure it out. Eventually I did tell him when we were drunk. Yay, liquid courage, and I could see everything click in his head. He was sorry but we've gotten past it. Edit for spelling and context. I go back and forth between my mom's and dad's house. Court ordered, and I have for years. I switch houses every Sunday at about 7 PM. I was playing in the yard with my dog, waiting for her to get there. And when she did, we drove home. I had just gotten out of the car and walked inside of my mom's house when she got a call. She handed me the phone. And apparently, seconds after we drove away my dog had a heart attack and died. They rushed him to the vet but they couldn't save him. I never got to say goodbye. When my friend said I should drink some more because I'm no fun without alcohol. When I realized I lost my passion for writing and playing music and quit my bands. They both had success after I left. That was about 10 years ago. Trying to get my groove back now. Interviewing a potential student who is interested in my school. He has a huge green circle around his eye. Row. Quite a black eye. What did you do? I was born like this. Watched lesbian porn and accidentally casted it onto the main TV in the living room. Where my parents were watching TV on. I was on a school trip to a preschool and I had bad gas. I was chilling on the floor and this little girl jumped on my stomach and I ripped ass so fucking hard. Setting. Junior high. Status. Awkward preteen. Style. Liked cats. Very shy. Walked out of the school bathroom. Noticed after a bit that the popular girl in school was watching me. Giving me a strange look. She then approached me. and wordlessly pulled my skirt out of my underwear that I'd just tidily tucked in with the rest of my uniform. Then just walked away to avoid my shame, as I'd just been walking around with my panties showing. Walked halfway across campus before a random dude let me know that I had a string of toilet paper hanging out of the back of my pants. There was poop. Just kill me. When you're having a conversation with your friends and you keep getting talked over like you never said anything, and by the time someone does acknowledge you the subject has changed, so they all give you a weird look for being so behind, and it keeps happening and you realize that these people aren't really your friends, you're just kind of there. So my nephew is called Dominic. I have a bunch of nicknames for him like Dom, Dommy, Domatron, Domazos, Dominatrix. Yeah, no one for ages told me what it meant, until my husband explained it to me when I was talking about him. Like I used that name in front of people no one told me. I feel so stupid now, as like dear it's obvious. 6th grade all day field trip to SeaWorld Orlando. Surprise period through my white shorts. All the moms who wanted to help only had tampons. I was 11 and had no idea how to use them. There ensued an embarrassing crash course. I was devastated until random dad saved the day by giving me his windbreaker to tie around my waist and told me to go have fun. Thanks random field trip dad. You saved the day. When my mother told me on my wedding day not to lose this man because no one could ever love me. Same day telling me in my wedding dress not to gain any more weight because if I have a baby I'd basically be fat forever. When I was 14 and super sick one summer I couldn't eat. Was down below 100 pounds. My mom told me I should go put a bikini on so she could take photos because I'd never be that skinny again. I had just fainted a couple hours earlier because I hadn't been able to eat. She just oozed all her own insecurities all over me my whole life. My husband and I have been married almost 16 years. He has spent our entire marriage undoing all of the damage he has done. He's a saint. Not as deep as many others, but there was a time I had a group presentation, and none of my group had read the book we were presenting. So I had to frantically write index cards for them to read off of before our presentation. But our professor sniffed it out and started asking them questions, while I tried to whisper the answers to them. We did not do well, and I realized my friends were idiots. I crochet and my old boss at work asked me for a scarf. He requested lilac, which I thought was odd, but he was super insistent and even sent me a color chart pointing out the exact shade he wanted. I bought the yarn and made him a scarf, but then ran into him and mentioned the scarf again and he started cracking up saying he was joking. Definitely embarrassing, but I'm glad I didn't actually bring it with me and give him the scarf only to find out he was being an asshole. I wound up giving it to another co-worker who was watching the whole thing play out and she was super appreciative. I guess my birthday, since my dad died an hour before it. My uncle died the night of it, really the early morning after. And my aunt almost died on it but managed to make it another month. Separate birthday years at least. Every single time a user says, but I'm not a computer person, you sit at this machine 8 hours a day and work on it for your job. Why is it so much trouble to type your password incorrectly? I've told this story before, but there was a time when I knew I was coming down with what I was sure was going to be an absolute bastard of a cold. Already beginning to feel a little fuzzy in the brain. I decided to make myself some chicken soup in advance to get me through the worst of it. I chopped some carrots, chopped some onions, threw in a chicken carcass and over the course of about 4 hours made the most bomb stock you could imagine. Then my dumbass poured it through a colander directly into the sink. It took me a good 30 seconds before I realized what I'd done. Then I just sat on the kitchen floor for about 10 minutes, gazing at the opposite wall and wishing real life had a Control-Z function. Introducing myself to my mom every time I visit her and explaining to her that I'm her son. Every single time. Picking up the body of our 3-year-old cat after a hit and run. I rescued him at a few hours old after his mother rejected him and attacked him. We bottle fed, replaced his hot water bottle and pooped him, don't ask, every 2 hours. Including through the night. For weeks. Against all the odds. He survived to be the most loving and affectionate cat I've ever known. He was so obsessed with us because we were effectively his mummy and he was never weaned. And that morning I got the call he'd been killed by a car. I tried to pick him up, but his lifeless body was so floppy and heavy, but familiarly warm. I thought I would drop him. I will never forget that feeling. Also, all the while knowing I was going to have to tell my husband and our 2 small children. When all of my friends knew my ex was cheating and told me half a month after. Solidified by the fact that my ex only apologized for sticking his dick inside a girl after he heard I found out. I haven't been the same person since then, tbh. Edgy, I know, it really changed me. When our beloved cat developed a cancerous tumor and had to be put to sleep, the vet asked if I'd like to hold him as he was euthanized. Foolishly, I said that I would, wanting to be with him until the last second of his life, not realizing the emotional impact it would have. I know it sounds overly sentimental, but it felt as though part of me died with him that moment. Even as I type this, I'm reliving it. When I went to the pool with my family, my aunt forgot my cousin's activity access card. Basically, in our town you get this one kind of ID card where it allows you to get books at the library. Prove you live in the town. And in this case, go to the pool for free all summer. Otherwise you paid $10, and she's usually the chillest person ever. I assume she's gonna pay it and so take my 10-year-old cousin towards the female side of the changing rooms. Hey, you are not going anywhere, insert cousin name here until I fix this with this bitch. I turn around. My aunt starts yelling Karen style at this poor summer worker that must be about 14 that she always comes to this pool and it's unacceptable to make her pay when they always have the card. My cousin had to stay and watch through the gates because she couldn't go in and my aunt just took the car and left. I paid so she could come in with us instead of crying her eyes out cause her mom can't be damned to pay $10. She came back huffing with the card and nearly threw it at the employee before even realizing her daughter wasn't in front of but into the pool. She didn't even look for her. I wanted to die. When my cousin, almost brother, died from a weird disease, and all our family members who'd watched us grow up together and be inseparable would look at me with pity and silent compassion. It just made me feel worse every time. They still do it every now and then. Even though tomorrow will be 3 years since he passed. And it still makes me feel awful. I lent my savings to my father, who spent them on fuck knows what. I had to accept that he can't face telling you as a fair answer, so never truly got closure, and lied to me about it for a year. My boyfriend killed himself after 5 years of what felt like a loving relationship. Then I discovered he'd been cheating on me with an objectively disgusting person. When I realized I'd chosen the wrong degree again, and was either going to be stuck in a career which didn't suit me at all, finance, or had to start again. Yet again. I went to an interview once where one of the 2 people interviewing me asked if I knew French. I said I knew core French, so they decided to conduct the interview completely in French. I can understand when someone speaks French to me. I can read and write fluently in French. But I can't for the life of me speak French. It was so bad that one of the interviewers got up and left halfway through and didn't come back. Needless to say, I didn't get the job. Edit. I was drenched in sweat by the end of it. Never forget it. When I was about 9, I was in a school assembly, all 400 students and all the teachers. At our school assemblies the students sat cross-legged on wooden floor in the sports hall. Well, I had to fart. And I assumed it would be quiet. It was not. It ended up being extremely loud and was amplified by the wooden floor. Nothing big in particular. But every time I say hello to someone and I am being left without a response, I feel awkward, and every time it happens, I die a little inside. Was on a Skype call for work with about 25 other people. Had the mic on my computer turned all the way up and was typing on my computer almost continuously. About 15 minutes into the meeting, someone finally IMs me to turn off my mic because nobody could hear what was being said. I asked a blind man if he wanted to play darts with me. It was summer and we were in a resort and obviously everybody was wearing sunglasses. I couldn't take a no for an answer, so I think I asked him at least 5 times before he finally said, "Mate, I'm blind." When my dad told me he was obligated to love me, but he didn't have to like me, I was 10. And I was absolutely crushed. When parents get into a heated fight in front of their children, and you can see the terror and hurt in their eyes. When we were about 18, my friend told me that his mom had just been caught cheating on his dad and how it was going to tear the family apart. I remember him even saying, "I hate my mom for this. She's just a fucking slut." Later that evening a few of us went for a drink. I arrived late and got some drinks in. As I sat down, the same lad was telling the group I hate her. "She's just a fucking slut." So I said, "Oh, I see you've told them about your mom then. It's so bad that she could do that to your dad." He was talking to them about some girl we know. But now everyone realized I had slipped up about something big and he ended up having to tell everyone. My ex-best friend told me he didn't care about me. Well, that sucked. Immediately cut contact while he asks our mutual friend how I am because he's worried. Fuck off. His right to be worried left the moment he said he didn't care about me. After everything I've done for that asshole. This was somewhere around August-September's. But sometimes it still feels fresh. It was probably one of his many manipulative games. But it was the last one I could handle from him. After all the verbal and mental abuse from him. I'm somewhat proud of myself that I finally cut contact. But I'm afraid that when he tries to crawl back into my life, I'll fall for it all over again. In 4th grade, my school had a fundraiser around Valentine's Day where you could buy a carnation for $1 or a rose for $2. It would then be delivered with a message to the person of your choosing. I liked a boy in my class, so I decided to buy him a rose and write a note from his secret admirer. Well, I couldn't wait for the rose to be delivered. So I wrote a note and slid it under his book when he got up to go to the bathroom. His friend saw because I'm about as stealthy as an elephant on roller skates. Friend took the note. Read it out loud when the boy got back. The rose came not long after. The boy took it, looked at me, snapped the rose in half, and threw it in the trash. Also, there was the recurring instance of being the target of my friend likes you www. No, I don't does wonders for a girl's self-esteem. Especially since my mom continued the insults at home, lol. I've told this story before. But when I was 8 years old we took a field trip to the Field Museum here in Chicago. During our lunch break I decided to wander off to the gift shop and see what they had. I had a huge crush on this girl named Victoria in my class and I saw this ladybug ring on sale for a couple of dollars. I knew she liked ladybugs and I had money my parents gave me to buy something at the shop. So I decided to buy the ring and give it to her. I was really nervous and kept waiting for the right time to do it. I eventually decided to just go for it and walked up to her near the end of the trip. She was with some of her friends, which made me more nervous. But I finally found the courage to do it. She looked at the ring and laughed. Her friends joined her and she then tossed the ring in the trash. I was completely devastated and tried hard to hold back my tears. Even though I'm over it now. That completely fucked my confidence with girls for a long time. Looking back, I may have embarrassed her too, giving it to her in front of her friends. Which is why she reacted that way. But whatever the case, it's probably the most embarrassed I have been in my life. When I was 17, depressed and was seriously considering ending my life, I wanted to know how my mother had died. She died when I was 2, so I never knew her. Before I decided on killing myself, I wanted to know how she had passed away. So one day in the car, just me and my dad, I asked my dad how she died. He didn't say anything for like a full-on minute and I was nervous about his reaction. So when I finally looked at him, there were tears running down his face. It was that moment I felt like a piece of crap for wanting to end my life. What made it worse was that when he finally gathered himself, he told me she had hung herself due to her BPD, borderline personality disorder. So I felt like an even bigger piece of crap. So just seeing how 15 years after she died, that was how he reacted when asked how she died, I knew I couldn't make him feel that way again. So I wasn't living for myself but to stop him from going through that again. When I had to watch my dog slowly die. She was pretty young but got this rare illness that we couldn't afford to cure. So we just gave her a simple, comfy, and very short life. I died inside when I had to take her body to bury. Death is one thing. But having to walk with the body in a box in your hands is next level soul draining. Standing in a circle. surrounded by the people I thought were friends as they took turns berating me and listing all my flaws. I was late for a practice for the group we were in because I was naive and had no idea how long it takes to eat at a fondue restaurant. I felt awful about it and couldn't stop apologizing. Anyway, when I got there, they had an intervention. But instead of the problem being drugs or something, it was my personality. That moment when you realize that everything you've ever been insecure about actually does make you despicable to the people you care about and admire. Every time I have to do a presentation at school. I'm an introvert, so this isn't exactly my preferred type to go in front of my whole classroom and talk. But I generally manage to do the job. Although, every time fumble my words or just stop talking, I die inside a little of embarrassment and my heart beats so fast that it might just pop out of my chest. Thankfully everyone in my class and even the teachers themselves are really nice and understanding about it. Especially because most of them have fear of public speaking too. When my father passed away unexpectedly. When I found out my husband was having an affair. When I lost a baby and nearly died. I just posted this in comments, but here it is. Here I had the biggest crush on this girl, so I bought her a box of chocolates and give it to her in between classes. Then she took it, looked inside and threw it on the ground, top open, walked over it and walked off. I felt like shit after that. This was on Valentine's Day. I tried to kiss my crush during sex. She turned away. Made me feel like shit and ruined the mood. The funeral home messed up the day of my mom's funeral and they took her out of the refrigerator a day early. When I saw her body, it was awful. I was in college and had to handle it by myself because my dad was at the cemetery handling the arrangements there. I never told him. I start hyperventilating now writing those words. I was sitting in class in high school. Context: cell phones were 100% not allowed in my school at all. I had a cell phone anyway because I lived pretty far from school and needed to be in contact with my mother just in case. The previous night I had turned the volume up on my phone all the way for reasons. So there I am in class. And not just any class. I went to a Jewish school and this class was essentially Holocaust class. It was the one class where there was no talking out of turn and everyone took seriously. Just as everyone was settled in, but before the teacher started talking, I get a text. In the perfect silence of Holocaust class a voice rings out. And that voice was Peter Griffin saying at top volume, "Oh my GD. WHO the hell cares." Once bought a bottle of Pepsi in a meal deal but didn't have space to put it in my bag. In my infinite wisdom, I decided to pour the contents into my reusable water bottle so I wouldn't have to carry both bottles. It was one of them bottles that has the straw in it and you flip the top up when you want to drink. Opened it in a little hardware store later in the day and the gas had built up in the bottle and it spurted out like a water gun all over the wall and ceiling. I was so embarrassed and tried my best to clean it up for them, but all the staff could do was laugh. One of them told me I was stood in the perfect spot for the CCTV to pick it up and he would be watching it back later. She said I should move out and we were done. I died inside. My girlfriend decided she liked my best friend more. Broke up with me. Tried to get with him but he friend-zoned her right off the bat. It was sad for a long time but now I think it's hilarious. When I got fired from a German call center. For not knowing German, I studied German language and literature. I translated hundreds of documents from German to English or my native language and vice versa. But I still didn't know German apparently. Sucks, man. Is it in? I was walking in synchronization to the music playing through speakers in a public place a little too perfectly. And then I made eye contact with someone and felt odd. When my grandmother asked if I was pregnant. I am a guy. I found a resident at my work, CNA, crying, and when asked what was wrong he responded, "I have baby brains." For some context, I work at a traumatic brain injury center. For these types of people, this is their permanent home. And coming from someone who is usually caught in a 3-sentence loop, the self-realization was something I didn't think he was capable of. Feel Spudman JPEG. When I was assaulted, then assaulted again by a different person. Second time it happened while a movie was playing. I can't ever watch that movie. My sister started making TikToks and quoting long dead memes. She doesn't do it ironically. I rear-ended my buddy's Jaguar F-Type after insisting he bring it to my birthday barbecue so that my family could see it. Around the block from the house so everyone knew and saw. 5th grade spelling bee. I made it to the school-wide level, which was the 3rd round in. First I had to beat my own class, then beat the other 5th grade classes, and next was the whole school. My first word was biscuit. Easy. My second word was soccer. Also easy. Except for the fact that I was a bit nervous being up on stage, with the whole school in attendance, including my mom who was there for support. It got in my head a little bit. I heard soccer and thought, okay, this is easy. Remember, there are 2 C's in soccer. 2 C's. 2 C's. Step up to the microphone. C-O. Instantly knew what I did. Faster palmed myself in front of everyone. Dead inside. Despite this realization, and the fact I had already lost, my brain kept the letters mixed up and I spelled the rest of the word. S-S-E-R. Cossa. Any Cossa fans here? Or, as you may call it in your country, buttful? I received a set of boxes in the mail with no return address on a Monday morning. When I opened the boxes I started noticing stuff that is my mom's, her handwriting on notes. This seems to be some sort of care package from my mom. Was in college at the time. As I opened more, there were all these documents. I was confused. Then I found a note. My mom committed suicide but planned it all out. She sent me a list of things to take care of now that she's gone. Now I hate getting packages. When I was about 13 my dad took me aside one night and apologized for putting so much effort into supporting my twin brother and so little into supporting me. I always assumed he was just smarter, physically more gifted. Turns out he and my mother had actively and knowingly neglected me in order to encourage my brother's achievements. It happened all through my schooling. They paid thousands for his sporting trips and when I had the same opportunities they just didn't have the money. Still kills me inside now. When I told my girlfriend of 6 years I love her while I was on the road for work, she just responded that we'll talk Friday when I get home. This was yesterday. I just bought an extremely expensive ring a week ago. Edit. For all those asking. No, this was not the first time I said I love you. It's an everyday thing for us. And yes, we talked about marriage many times before and she even came and helped pick out the ring design she likes. She knows it was coming extremely soon. Capital M. I was supposed to fill in for the coach of my son's soccer team this weekend. But plans changed. This morning I told my son I wouldn't be coaching his team on Saturday. He said, good. Dead inside. Like and subscribe if you want to.